Ravens were tied with the Bills. Bills, Ravens, Packers, Eagles, Chiefs dropped down to plus 1,400 tied.
So do the Chiefs have the fifth best Super Bowl odds?
Oddly, the fifth best Super Bowl odds, but the second best odds in the AFC West.
Yeah.
Do the Bills deserve to be the favorites?
Look, yes. They beat the Ravens. I mean, I think the Ravens, obviously that's my pick in the AFC. I think the Ravens did outplay the Bills for most of that game, obviously. But the Bills not only beat them in that game, but they've beaten them the last 2 times at least that they played, obviously last year in the playoffs. The Bills are lined up for the number 1 seed because the division's not as tough, so the schedule's not as tough. So, yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, I disagree with that. I understand that they beat the Ravens. The Ravens are my pick. You know, I'm a Baltimore guy.
Yeah.
Everyone knows that you're wearing the tie.
Yeah. But I don't see how Philly couldn't be the favorites at this point. And the fact that they were a little underwhelming to open up against Dallas, but that's the first game of the season. I think if roles reversed and they played Kansas City first and then Dallas second, it would have been different. Like Buffalo played Baltimore first and then moved into the Jets. And to get out of the AFC is going to be a lot tougher, I think, than it's going to be for Philly to get out of the NFC and to get back to the Super Bowl.
Do they factor in, because you know how they do the lines, do they factor in that it's just so hard to repeat as champion?
No.
I was thinking the same thing because it only happened 2 times.
I mean, I don't think that's part of the math on this is really just where money's coming in and who people believe in. They certainly factor in path. Right.
Oh, my God. Well, I'm going to see what Nick says, but this is what I've been saying every time Nick complains about why it's so disrespectful that the Chiefs aren't here when they've won the Super Bowl last year and then they won the last 2 Super Bowls. And that's why I said it has nothing to do with the past. Nothing to do with the past. And fans would always yell at me and say, yes, it does. Yes, it does. And now he's literally saying it doesn't. I always even use the Vegas reference of going to a roulette table and how they show you the past numbers and colors that came up and how it's all nonsense that you ignore that because that has no indication of anything. You know, like even if it came up 5 times in a row, the chances of it being 7 again, the odds don't change. So the fact that he finally just said that right here is like, this is what I've been screaming. This is why I always say the whole disrespect, that why this team isn't being favored. Like, it's just basic math. Like, oh my gosh, that's unbelievable. This is an indicator to me that Vegas truly believes Buffalo is going to be the 1 seed even though we're just 2 weeks in. And that is such a massive edge as far as your chances of winning the championship. Not just because you have home field, but skipping that game is, you know what I mean? And Buffalo, obviously, since Josh has been there, they've never had a bye. Because early in his career, when there were 2 byes, they never got to the 2 seed, and they've never been the 1 seed. They've been the 2 seed a number of times, never been the 1 seed. And I think it's a pretty smart bet that they'd get the bye. Like if you look their schedule compared to Baltimore's and see Kansas City is not eliminated from it, but it's 0-2 for Kansas City to get the bye. Honestly, they probably have to go 13-2 the rest of the way. You know what I mean? And so they don't have a world. They got 1 world beater in their first 10 games outside of Baltimore at home. Like, look at that. The Chiefs, the number. And then, honest to God, they have pretty good. They have on their entire schedule the rest of the way 3 teams that we all agree are good. And I don't even know if you guys agree the Chiefs are good, but in the Chiefs, you know what I mean? Chiefs, Bucks, Eagles, that's it. Yeah. And Bengals won't have Joe Burrow like they're. And so that to me is, and let me say one other thing that I think maybe juiced their odds a bit. There is now, some would believe, I'm not one of them, but a universe that exists where Buffalo could get to the Super Bowl and never have to play Kansas City. Oh, okay. I know because this is all about Kansas City, so we're going to stick with Buffalo here. Yeah, this is why I said the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens are both in the driver's seat to get the 1 seed, especially with the Chiefs now going 0-2. The Chargers will make a run at it seemingly right now, especially when you had any of these other potential AFC teams that could be sneaky competitive like the Broncos or whatnot, you know, dropping a game that they shouldn't have. And especially now the Bills beating the Ravens week 1, that obviously is a huge boost for them. But like, listen, we always know that some of these games get weird. Like a game against the Dolphins, against the Panthers. I mean, the Bills experienced it themselves, obviously, last year. They had a couple weird games, or at least one weird game against the Patriots. But obviously, definitely, of course, against the Texans, and an unnecessary shootout against the Dolphins. But like, yeah, I mean, like, it really should be win-win-win. It'll be interesting. Week 9 with the Kansas City Chiefs. They should be fully healthy by then. Rashid Rice should have no suspension, and also probably shake off some rust, because now he would have already played at least a game. And so I could imagine that still being a sneaky, great, not even sneaky, I just think it will be a great game. Because it's Patrick Mahomes versus Josh Allen. They always answer the call when the phone rings. And so, but for me, it's definitely the biggest games, the hardest games will be the Chiefs versus the Eagles. I know Nick Wright's super high on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but I mean, like, you know, I'm going to have Buffalo in that game. And also now later in the season, it's going to start to get colder. You know, all these home games for Buffalo are an advantage for them. And, you know, right, you don't have to worry about Joe Burrow now at all. I mean, that should be a game one. The Steelers with Aaron Rodgers, like, listen, I think they're not, I think they're better than what First Things First would have you believe. But like, you know, it's just what are we talking about? This is Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. I mean, like, there should just be a lot of wins here. A lot of wins here. And so I do see them having the best chance at getting the #1 seed, and the Ravens second right now, currently, for that matter. And getting that bye and getting home field advantage, which would be huge for them, obviously. But the other thing is and I was thinking about this because you had the Bills play and you had the Ravens play, and that was easily the biggest game of the season so far, where we just saw the most, and we saw the most out of the most important position, quarterback, obviously, right? And we saw Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen go head to head in a game where they both played brilliant. And I was thinking about this because I always struggle early season trying to figure out who's great, who's not, you know, where do I put everyone? How do I make sense of this? I'm using last year as a little bit of a frame of a reference, but I really try not to, because it is a new year, new faces, new pieces, new different levels of varying health and whatnot, different schedule, you know, all of this type of stuff. And to me, it's just one of those things where it's like, since we so have limited information, it's just like, at the end of the day, right now in this immediate moment of recording this clip at 8 o'clock at night, 8:30 at night, I look at it and I'm just like, we're talking about the playoffs. Because now we're talking about deserving to be favorites, win the Super Bowl, et cetera, just like, since I don't have a clear consensus of how any of these teams are going to be necessarily on both sides of the ball, the defense, offense, like, I know everyone's really high on the Green Bay Packers defense, and so am I, but like, I don't know how great they're going to be against the Lamar Jacksons, against the Josh Allens. I know the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl, and their defense is, you know, good, and their offense is good, but I don't know how great it is this year. You know, I got questions about their offensive coordinator, and can their defense, you know, continue to play to get better, et cetera, and I don't have those answers now. Nobody has those answers right now, and people are concerned about the Ravens defense and the Bills defense, mainly because of how they looked against each other, and I'm just kind of like, you can't really necessarily gauge that. It was week 1 against 2 brilliant quarterbacks, so it's just like, I don't know. And so my default then goes to, that's why I keep leaning on the Bills and the Ravens as the top teams, because I'm just like, at the end of the day, since I don't have a ton of clarity around these teams, and I've been so consistent on this, where everyone always asks me, what are your quarterback rankings? What are your quarterback rankings? And I always say it really depends. Are you on a stacked team? Do you have a great O-line, a bad O-line, a great coach, a bad coach, a great defense, but no weapons, a bad defense? And it's just like, you know, one of my main things that I always say is, like, if you're on a bad team with like bad coaching, I think Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson will do the best in those situations, you know, that they can do the most with the least in that moment of time. And so since I don't have 100% clarity around these teams as a whole, I'm just like, well, I do got the clarity and confidence around a Josh Allen and a Lamar Jackson. And so that's my default. And then especially if we're now talking about playoffs, it's certainly Josh Allen, right? It's like, well, now definitely Josh. So it just makes sense when you have limited information right now. We've only seen 2 weeks of football, but what does give me concern is that you needed Josh Allen to play absolutely positively out of his mind just to eke out and steal the win against Baltimore Ravens. And Lamar Jackson did not need to have one of his top games of his career. And they were winning handedly. They were on the path to H, making it a blowout. And so it's just like, I do find that concerning. How will it look in the playoffs? You know, if it's the AFC championship game at home, like I don't know, you know, will things finally change for Baltimore? I'm not gonna keep pretending like I have the answer of what something is gonna look like in December and January, because I just don't. But if I'm just trying to look at these first 2 weeks, it's like I throw away the game against the Jets, doesn't mean anything to me. I throw away against the game against the Browns for the Ravens, doesn't mean anything to me right now. And so now I'm looking at those two teams playing each other, and I'm like, yeah, that was a wild game. I could see why you would feel better about the Ravens, because they felt like they were way more in a position to win that game, and it was just easier for them. It was easier for Lamar Jackson. You needed Josh Allen to be an absolute superhero. But again, it was week 1. You're going up against the Baltimore Ravens, and, you know, then we just keep going in circles. So, to me right now, if we're trying to do the math game and trying to figure out home field advantage and who's going to be better in the playoffs, then yeah, 1,000% makes sense to pick the Bills. But as of right now, it's just like, if I was really forced to make a decision and you asked me like, man, you got to decide right now, it's just like, my gut would just tell me Bills and Ravens, that they're the safer bet. I don't think it's necessarily 100% easier in the NFC than it is for the AFC, and therefore you put the Eagles. Like, I don't think that's fair. Everyone's talking about the Green Bay Packers being the best team in the NFL, and you know, they got them labeled as the #1 team, and the Dallas Cowboys are actually pretty good, and the Commanders are in their division, and they were in the NFC Championship game last year. And the Bills have a terrible division, and now Russell Wilson is starting to ball out with the New York Giants, and you know, while Josh Allen is going up against Drake May and Justin Fields, who was just as bad as it gets. And the Baltimore Ravens, like, they're going up against, you know, 75-year-old Aaron Rodgers and a backup quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals. No more Joe Burrow and Cleveland Browns with Joe Flacco. So it's just like there are a lot of easy wins for these teams that then put them in a position to get that bye, get that 1 seed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, whereas again, a team like the Packers now, they already beat the Lions, and now they get to go up against the Chicago Bears with Caleb Williams. That's not looking so good right now. And that defense certainly is not looking so good right now. And J.J. McCarthy, now you got Carson Wentz playing with Kevin O'Connell. And if J.J. McCarthy comes back, you got the advantage of a rookie quarterback now, you know, so with a great defense. So it's just like, you know, there's easy wins to kind of go around depending on where you look at it, especially when looking at the various divisions right now. So I don't get too hung up on Super Bowl odds that are made on September, you know, the middle of September. It just doesn't mean a whole lot. But I think it makes sense that the Bills are the favorites right now. Because when you really do look at the schedule and take a step back, you're like, Bills, this is your #1 seed to lose. And it's funny because I made a Ravens video and I said, you know, I expect them to be a top 2 seed and compete for the #1 seed, and it'll be indefensible for them not to. And then I said, but to be fair, it feels very much like it's the Bills' 1 seed to lose. And if they do, if they fumble it, if they randomly drop that game to that Dolphins and then have a bizarre game and they now lose to the Panthers or something, it's like, that should be all it takes for the Ravens to scoop up and say, thank you very much, we'll take the 1 seed now. you know, it's there for them. It's there for them. So you want to see this team continue to evolve, and you want to see this defense also feel a lot more comfortable. And using the Jets as a reference point isn't the best example. And quite frankly, using the Ravens as a reference point isn't the best example either. So, but I don't know when they find that reference point right now. Probably against the Chiefs, who are full strength, and maybe the Buccaneers a little bit. But going up against the Dolphins and the Saints and the Patriots, like there's going to be a lot of weeks where I don't think we really have a deep understanding of the quality of this Bills team. You know, like, because I'm going to be like, yeah, great, you beat the Dolphins. I hope you did. You know, great, you beat the Saints. Like, yeah, you should. Great, you beat the Patriots. Yeah, you should. Right? Like, there's just a lot of games where I'm just like, yeah, you better look clearly like the better team here. But, and then you're playing the Eagles week 17 now. Like, that's late in the season. I don't know what's at stake for either team, you know, at that point. You're just trying to, like, get in and get out and make sure that everyone's healthy. Like, it's just, you know, it's just tough. And like I said, you're playing the Chiefs. That's probably going to be your best, like, who are we game right now. But, like, I don't know who the Chiefs are by week 9. I mean, they might be so desperate they might only come away with 3 wins. Like, I mean, who knows? Or they might, like, legitimately be on the hunt, ready to go and say, hey, man, we just need to win 7 of our next 8 games and we're winning the division. I mean, it's impossible to know right now. So, but that probably still will be the best, you know, barometer of who the Bills are, which is a little frustrating because we do have a lot of games, which I'm sure they're going to win convincingly in many of them. And everyone's just going to want to keep celebrating it. And I'll have to be the guy who's like, yeah, no, that's great. And Josh Allen's looking great, but like it was against the New Orleans Saints right now. Like I think we have to add a little context to it. But hopefully Bills fans don't react how Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens fans reacted when they had an absolute meltdown because I said I wasn't impressed with the win against the Cleveland Browns. And they were like, oh, you hate Lamar. You're so biased. You're a hater. And I'm like, I said it because I think that the Baltimore Ravens are an amazing team and a top team in the NFL and that Lamar Jackson is great. So, like, what are you talking about? Like, it's don't go Lamar, don't go full Lamar Jackson fan base or Patrick Mahomes fan base. Be the Josh Allen Buffalo Bills fan base. Those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Buffalo Bills deserving to be favorites? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So, you agree with me or disagree with me? Either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.